only was he building the business, but I saw the connections they had inside of their business, and I was like, how do they do that? Like I was impressed with you guys and how many people they know. Now I know your better half also has a lot to do with your success. I was only able to bring him up because I know she's running another event right now, and they have an event tomorrow. But when I asked him to come up, he said, yeah, this makes sense. So not only was he running an event, not only was he eventually moved to the part where he ran the state for his company. I know now he's a vice president, husband, father. I've met kids. I've stayed in his house. It wasn't the money in the team, it was the person that I was so impressed by. What's up, Will? So what I want to do is I'm going to get myself out of the way, and I'm actually going to bring up to the front Mr. Kelly. Can you give him a big round of applause?
I was ready to continue to take notes, right? But I know we're on a time frame and we want to kind of try to stick to it. My name tag wouldn't stay on my suit either, so I don't know if it's me or the name tag. But how's everybody doing this? It's the name tag, right? It makes it hard, doesn't it, Rich? So I'm excited to be here, and of course, honored at being asked to do anything as it relates to Gamble Enterprises, as I like to call it, right? Because this gentleman is a master of all different types of sorts of building relationships, and the same respect that he has for me and my wife, who truly is the wind beneath my wings. She's not here with us tonight because she's in Chicago. Actually, she is a part of a ministry that is up in Chicago doing some work, and so we get a chance to divide and conquer. But again, it's beautiful to be around people that you can consider family, right? And so I haven't gotten a chance to meet everybody, but over the next couple of minutes while I'm here, hopefully we'll get a chance to interact enough to where we can feel the same as we are leaving out of the room. And I know each and every one of you are here tonight because you want a breakthrough, right? Thus the name of the summit itself. And so I'm here for the same thing, right? Because whether you're actually giving the presentation or whether you're receiving it, you're still growing all at the same time. And typically, as I'm doing what I'm doing now, I learn more from the people that I'm engaging than I actually feel like I teach them. So it's a mutual benefit as it relates to what it is that we're doing on tonight. So, definitely excited. Want to share real quickly, a little bit about my background. Well, let me just ask this real quickly. What kind of things do you want to know about people that are going to speak into your lives for 30, 45 minutes?
Your experience.
Their experience? Okay, I got that. I'll share that.
Your backstory.
Backstory, right? Because there's always a story behind the story, right? It can look good on the front pages, but typically there's some other stuff that has to go on behind that. What else?
Your credentials.
Credentials. Okay, good.
A little of their philosophy, their ideas,
Awesome.
the way they think.
Yes, sir. I like your haircut too, Richard.
All
Yes, so I'll start with that. So my background was that of a barber, right? So it's a gift and a curse. Every time I see my mom, I look at her from her hair to her eyebrows, and no matter what she's saying, she's like, "Boy, stop looking at my eyebrows." Right? But I can't help it. It's what I did, since the age of 13, and so I pay attention to the little things about people's, whether they're well manicured or how they handle themselves, and my eyes just wander. So I try to do better, right? But it's just one of those things. But been cutting hair since the age of 13. A little bit of my backstory. I actually started cutting hair to keep me from doing some other things that people that were around me were doing, right? Because being raised in a single parent home, money needed to come in, and there were all kinds of different ways people were making money, but not all of them were going to be advantageous. Make sense? So I had a stepfather who was drug addicted and brilliant man, right? Knew how to start. He showed me entrepreneurship. So his gifts were he knew how to start businesses, right? But his integrity and character had flaws. So he was a great starter, but never could seem to sustain or finish anything. And that could be a good training all by itself.
Yeah.
Right? How many of us have ever seen great starters? Yeah. So, and we'll find that a lot in our industry. You have people that are joiners, but they don't decide that they're going to finish anything. And that's not of your making, as Jim Rohn says a lot of times. That was their hardwired, their programming. They came into it saying, if things don't go perfect, I'm gonna walk away, right? And that's why 52% of all marriages in the United States of America end up in what? Divorce, because people walk in with an exit strategy.
Yeah.
Make sense? So don't think that your business is going to be any different. But he was a great starter, and he showed me the world of barbering, and he was a fantastic barber. I mean, we had the cleanest cuts in the neighborhood, but when he would go away for weeks at a time, guess what would happen? We start to look a little woolly. We wouldn't be as sharp as Richard. You can't go to school, middle school, woolly. It's not going to be a good look, right? So we had two options. One to let mom cut it, and instead of a straight line across the front, which is important, it would normally be a little round. Like, Mom, you can't keep doing that to us, right? Because that's even worse than being woolly. So, I share that. The only reason why I share it is because a lot of times out of our pain comes our purpose. So if you take notes, you might want to write that down, because we think the negativity that shows up in our life and business and relationships and finances, a lot of times we look at those pain points as things that are designed to bring us down, but really the pain that we experience in life, if you pay attention, could actually lead you to the purpose that is a part of what you've been created and designed to do, right? So at 13, I had to pick up a pair of clippers, number one, because I had to keep myself together. Wasn't that good in the beginning, right? And it's okay to be bad when you start, as long as you intend to get better.
Yep.
Okay, so for anybody that's brand new, how many people do we have in here that, is everybody in here from the network marketing industry? Yes, no, everybody? Okay, I thought we would have some different people, different arenas, but I just want to make sure who we're talking to. But it's okay to be bad in the beginning, as long as you intend to get better. It's a philosophy. That's a mindset. Just like you were talking about a second ago, because people are programmed to say, if you don't make an A right off the bat, then of course, you can't have success long term. And that's not really true. As long as you intend to get better, I failed my way to success in business. Okay, I made a couple people shape-ups round like my mom did mine initially. A few parts were a little too wide. I still have a cousin right now that mentions every time I was about to go to a New Edition concert, and I asked for a part, and the part was supposed to be slim, but it ended up being wide, and he never forgot that. I mean, this was 20 years ago, and he's still talking about this big part that he had going to the concert. Right? So I made a few mistakes as I was growing in my barbering, venture. But what it did was, it allowed me, when people around me in my neighborhood were selling pharmaceuticals, and it wasn't legal, if everybody catches my drift, right? It allowed me to go for $2 a head and keep myself out of the way of the danger that many of the people that I grew up around in my neighborhood, where they had to go out and do, the things that they felt like they had to do. And it allowed me to be at home, but learn entrepreneurship. And again, I don't know what everybody's background is here, but where I come from, there was, different levels of socioeconomic status, just like I'm sure it was, where you grew up at.
Everywhere, absolutely.
Everybody has choices, right? No matter how good, bad, or indifferent. They made certain choices that led them down a certain path, and I had the choice, with that going on in my household, to choose that or to choose something different. And I'm so thankful that I had the pain point of needing a haircut, because it allowed me to stay focused. And that one skill led me to the place where I was able to be introduced to this industry, right? Because it was a friend of mine who I used to cut his hair in college that called me while I was in my barbershop after we had graduated. When I graduated, I never really saw myself working for anybody, but I went to college because that's what I was supposed to do. Anybody else here in the room was taught that, right? Go to school, get good grades, of course, come out and get a good job so you can, work the rest of your life, and then try to retire for 40% of what you couldn't live 100% off of while you were working. Right? That's the plan that we were taught in life. And how many of you know that doesn't always work?
No.
Really.
Right? A job is a great place to start,
Yep.
but it's no longer a great place to finish. So I learned that early on, right? Going through college, and it was amazing because as I was going through school, I worked with a lot of business professors because that's what I was going to school for. But isn't it interesting that about 70% of the business professors in college, you can go and do your research, have never owned a business?
Yep.
A little ironic, yeah.
So they're in college. At college level, professors are teaching theory versus real world experience.
Yep.
Very interesting. I didn't know that when I first went in, but if you ask a few questions, it'd be amazing what you can find out. Right? And so from the structure of that, I realized that I didn't want to work for somebody else. I came out, started a barbershop, and we started creating success. And I always wanted to have the best barbershop, in the neighborhood, and to grow it to be the best barbershop in the city. because I understood what it did for a man to come in and get cleaned up. And it would work from the inside out. You'd be amazed at the type of feel you have. Ladies, I'm sure it's the same. When you get up out of the chair, it's a whole different world. But I had found purpose in that skill set. But when I got the call to be introduced to network marketing, it was a game changer for me because I saw where I didn't just have the ability to put my thumbprint on the neighborhood or on the city, but where I could actually put my thumbprint at that time on the entire nation. Right? And how many of you have ever dreamed about things that were bigger than you? Before the dream actually became a possibility, you like, man, I just know there's something more. I know there's something else out there. And what I did was I found myself working 70 hours a week, love what I did, but hated the fact that I was spending more time at work than I was with my wife and my 4 children. Right? And I was going to bring up a slide and just show you because that was the reason why I actually changed what I was doing and did something different. Again, another pain point. I grew up single parent home, so my mom worked all the time, my dad wasn't present. So they missed everything, okay? And so I didn't want to do that with my children, but what I did was the exact same thing that I decided I wasn't gonna do. And hopefully in my story, you're picking up some, because the drama's in the details. Pay attention, because as I'm sharing my backstory, I want you to know that a lot of this is business building training. When you're talking about building teams, right? People's life, when you get to know them, like Mr. Gamble was talking about, helps you to learn how to guide them along the path. And do realize, if you're taking notes, pay attention to this. This is not your job to make someone become successful. It might have just helped somebody right there, right? It might have been a breakthrough, because I know when I first got started in this industry, I thought it was my responsibility. If they joined my team, they had to become successful. I was going to make them successful if it killed me. Right? Jim Rohn said, I almost died. Yeah. With that kind of mentality. But I felt like
just from frustration, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You want the best for those people. They become your friends a lot of times, and they, you know, there's no magic pill for that. You know?
Absolutely.
And it all comes down to their disciplines and their what motivates them from the inside. Yeah, it can be very frustrating.
To Richard's point, and thank you for sharing that. Right? That frustration, a lot of times, we take it on as our personal responsibility. Sure. So again, I tell you that it's not your responsibility to make someone else become successful. It's your responsibility to teach them the system of success, stay in that system long enough for them to see you modeling it out, right? And it's their job to follow you along the journey of success. And if they choose to do so, then they can have the same type of success, if not greater, because most of the time when you've done it, Todd, you've already cut down some of the trees in the forest, right? So they don't have the same plight that you had when you first got started. Okay, so as you're building business, you know, do realize that the pain points and where people come from really helps you if you pay attention to be able to learn how to guide them as a coach. And that's what I call myself, right? A lot of times people put titles in positions. I love, you know, again, the fact that people have titles, but, you know, I consider myself a servant leader. That's what I do. So, you know, again, and when I serve, if I serve properly, I'm going to turn other people into leaders. And so, you know, a couple big things that we'll talk about tonight, you know, number one is identifying leadership. You want to build big teams, you got to learn how to identify leaders, right? Number two is training leadership. Because most of the people that you find, even if they're leaders in other areas, they will still have to be trained to unlearn what they've learned, right? Learn what is necessary for them to grow here in this business, and then relearn from there that maybe even what they learned initially wasn't correct because they probably were still thinking about it from the same framework that they came into business with, right? So it's identifying leadership, training leadership, and then the last T is transferring leadership. And how many of us have ever been in a situation where you had a few leaders, right? I know we've all led followers. If you built any type of organization, you've had some people that just were followers. Couldn't count on them to do any of the stuff that you needed at a leadership level. Show up early, stay late, right? Do presentations, make the calls on their own. If something big wasn't happening, you know, if you weren't promoting the event, they weren't showing up, right? You couldn't count on them to do that. But if you did all that, they would show up. But then when you got somebody that joined your team that was a leader and they were ready to start taking those responsibilities on, and they were saying, hey, look, let me have it. I got a few people on my team. I can run the meeting. And it was a tug of war because you were so used to doing it all yourself that when you got that leader in the group, you didn't want to relinquish that responsibility to somebody else because you were so used to doing it yourself. Right? So sometimes we can actually run people off that are leaders because we don't want to transfer. So it's big. It's a whole nother level of development from leading followers than it is to leading leaders. And we all want to become the type of leaders that others will want to follow. So when I got the call from a friend of mine who I hadn't talked to in 3 years, right? Another big note that relationships don't have time frames. I know a lot of times when I'm talking to people about making a list, they say, you know, I only know about 20 people. I only know about 30 people. It's because they're only thinking about the people that they deal with in this last 3-year period of their life. Like, I don't really talk to a whole lot of people, but you've been through school, college, 6 jobs, you got, 3 different churches, you've been a part of this organization, that organization, but they dispel those people. Why? Because they're not in their close circumference. A friend of mine, I hadn't talked to him since college, but he knew I was in barbering because he had heard about what was happening with the barbershop. He calls me after 3 years, says, hey, listen, I need you to come and take a look at this thing. He didn't say thing, but that's what I heard. Anybody else feel like that when you first got the call? All right. So I went out. Why? Because I trusted my friend, right? I trusted my friend. I knew him well enough to know that he had my best interest at heart if he was calling me. Yeah. Right? And because I knew if I wanted him to show up, this is just me. If I ever wanted him to show up at anything, he would show up. So that mutual respect said if he called me and asked me to come, I'm going to just go just because it's my friend. Yep. This is what we do, okay? But people do business with people that they know, they like, and they trust. Some of this is elementary, but it's very foundational. And as you build in this industry, I've been in the industry now for 15 years. Repetition is the mother of all skill. You have to hear it over and over and over again because, again, to Mr. Gamble's point, our programming typically will tell us certain things that aren't really true for success, but because it was so hardwired in us. Quick example, we were at a training together with Mr. Grant Cardone, one of the leading sales gurus in the world, right? And he said, how many of you have ever told your children not to talk to strangers? Right?
Yeah.
So don't talk to strangers. This is the way we were programmed. This is the way we were raised, right? And they did it with, of course, great intent in their hearts as parents. They're like, no, we want you to be safe. But Grant Cardone said, if you don't already have everything that you need in life, right, and it's not in your personal family, then the stuff that you need actually is with the strangers that you've been programmed not to talk to. He gives this great story about how he was on a plane and his daughter wanted, a cookie, and he didn't have a cookie. And he said, listen, we're on a plane with over 200 and something people. Somebody on this plane got a cookie. I won't, you can just go and check out his material. I won't go into it, but eventually she got the cookie.
She got 6 of them, actually.
She got 6 of them, actually, right? But it wasn't from him. And what he's teaching this little girl at 6 is that to overcome whatever limitation you feel like you have personally and what we have personally in our family, you got to go out and you got to meet some people that may have your cookie. Right? So he was like, bad parents. You raise your hand and say, have you ever told them? Like, yeah, you guys are bad parents. You're totally, programming your kids incorrectly. So, again, as we think about it, people do business with people they know, like, and trust. When my friend called me, I went out to see this information. I already had a big dream about doing something more than what I was doing, even though I was doing well, right? But my pain point at that time was I was spending more time at work than I was with my family. What good is it if you're making 6 figures or better if you don't have the time to enjoy it with the people that are most important to you? No good at all, right? Doesn't set a solid foundation at home. And I was okay initially with giving my kids presents. I was trying to buy them all the things that I didn't have when I was growing up. I was working hard to make sure that they had all the presents. But when I really started looking at them and I was putting them to bed or waking them up in the morning, right, and taking them to school in first thing in the morning, but then I wasn't seeing them again until it was time for me to tuck them in bed at night. And I knew something about that wasn't right, right? I would have to get the report of what went on in the day after they were already asleep because it was so late. So instead of giving them presents with the TS, I wanted to have the ability to give them presents with the CE. And I knew I couldn't do it doing what I was doing as a barber. So my friend had no idea that I was already thinking, like, what else can I do with my life without giving everything else up? And he showed me this miracle working business that you could start part-time at the bottom, right? Go to the top. And where I'm from, they don't tell you can be a top-level executive day one. See, that's why I love network marketing, because as soon as you walk in, this young man that's taking notes right now, right? As a young man, he can start to see himself as a top-level executive, even as a young man, where there are no limitations, because most of the limitations that we have on our minds, folks, are self-imposed. Again, to Mr. Gamble's point. The only limitations we have, you've been created with infinite abilities, right? But you've been designed, or you were designed with infinite abilities, but you've been programmed with limitations, right?
Yep.
Okay, good. So, went to see network marketing, saw where I could actually work part-time to build full-time income. I could do it by empowering other people, and do realize, like Mr. Gamble, I wasn't the person who stood up and talked in front of people, right? I actually took my wife with me to my first event. She wasn't my wife then, she was my girlfriend, right? We were, building this amazing family, a blended family, and, it's like all kinds of stuff, right, that was going on. But I took her out because she's a social butterfly. And what I heard in the prospecting was, this business is good for people that know a lot of people and talk to people. She never meets a stranger. Like, if she'd have walked in here, y'all all would have, like, kicked your shoes off and, been singing by now. It's just what she does. It's magic, I'm telling you. But I'm completely different from her, right? And today I can stand in front of a group of people and they say, well, man, you're so charismatic. Right? These are things that you do. But I turn this on to do what I'm purposed to do. She does it in her sleep. I would just lay next to her sometimes and like, how do you do that, right? Serious. So I took her out to see the presentation. But again, as I'm watching this 21-year-old young lady, right, who the year before got started in network marketing, she was a RA at the University of Louisville, and she had hid her car behind a local strip club because it would just blend in with all the other cars, and not paid her car note to make the investment into her business to get started. In her first year, she made over $30,000 in that company from a borrowed $250 investment where she had to hide her car. So I'm watching this 21-year-old, I'm 27 at the time, like, if this little girl, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking I'm grown by that time at 27, right? If this little girl can go out and make 30 grand, I got barbers in my barbershop that are making 30 grand. They're working 70 hours a week, and she's a RA in a dorm, and she made the same amount of money.
Yeah.
I was like, if this little girl can do this, babe, you're gonna be amazing. But in the back of my mind, I'm seeing myself at the back of the room, in the front of the room for the very first time. See, that's why I love these kind of opportunities, because you never know when you create an environment for people to come and see a showcase, right? That's why the events are so important, because, and again, pay attention because the drama's in the details. We're talking about, right, the development of relationships. We're talking about how you build a list, right? I'm just not putting a title on it, but these are all the things that you train. How do you develop a list, right, with everybody you know? If you can put your picture up on a billboard in downtown Indianapolis, anybody that drives past and say, oh, I think I might know that guy, that is a prospect.
Yeah.
Right? So it doesn't matter if I knew him in high school, if, it was an estranged relationship because of a breakup, right? Even, I've got some enemies that are clients. They at least trust me enough Yeah, I was waiting on a smile from Todd the whole time. He's been poker face, right? But that spending time, and we call them suspects for a reason. Because they never really gave us any inkling. We just see their potential. And like Richard said, a lot of times we wanted more for other people than they wanted for themselves.
Yeah, you know, a lot of times they don't, because they don't have the confidence and the understanding of the things that we've learned about, you know, the individual. You know, I say, you know, I call it the business of life, and it's pretty amazing what we don't know about the power that's between our two ears.
Absolutely.
You know, and so that's not an easy thing to get somebody to react to and almost really appreciate, because they really don't believe it.
Yeah.
You know, it's a creative process. We've, you know, when you talk about business, people tend to get more serious, and they miss the understanding that they deserve it, that it's possible, and it takes a little while for them to start maybe even dreaming. You know, the process of dreaming is, you know, most people don't. You know, what have we all been told? Don't be a dreamer. You know, and I've been, you know, I've been that way all my life. You know, so I'd be in trouble in the corner with a dunce hat on because I was dreaming
Because
out
you was
the
a
window.
dreamer.
Yeah.
High five. That's what
Yeah.
I'm talking about. We would have been in the same corner together. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I'm
I know.
serious.
You know. Yeah,
Yes.
of course. You know, and that's something that, you know, you can get a person's attention by just reminding them of what maybe their dreams were, because, you know, especially if you're over 20 or 30 years old, you know, and you have been working and trying to, you know, get ahead. You mostly been so busy doing that you forgot your dreams. You know, and so if you introduce somebody and you kind of get them to get kind of emotional about, you know, their dreams, that helps them drive in the right direction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They say the average person dies from the neck up at age 21.
Yeah.
Ignite some of those faculties that you need to start dreaming again. Because
And
every one of
nobody
us has a big dream on the inside of us.
Nobody talked about a dream better than that guy.
Absolutely.
That's for sure. That book will change your life.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. And so sometimes we dream, but we don't know how to articulate well. So we have to go and learn from other people who know how to articulate what we're thinking so that we can put it into the right framework so we can actually execute it. Because a confused mind actually does nothing. Right? So spending too much time with suspects. Going back to what we were talking about a second ago. Because we got big dreams, we actually have big dreams for other people, but they may not be where we are. And that suspect, we have to realize when we're prospecting, that we, especially when you're building initially, you got to spend less time with more people. This is important. Okay? I'll say it again. You have to spend less time with more people to actually find the right people initially, because you're looking for the people that can help you to build, not be a project for you.
That's an understatement for me.
And this is huge. It's across the board in our industry. This is where we find that most people get hung up, and in that stage where they're trying to take off, right on the runway, you got a beautiful plane, which is what your dreams are. And this is you. And you can only carry so much weight. But most of us, instead of going out and getting them because that's what makes them feel comfortable, than going to talk to the more influential people.
So true.
Okay, so the people that are less influential now become your project.
Yeah.
And they need you to grow their business while you're trying to grow yours.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go recruit a Miss Bess already has a center of influence. She knows how to run business. And if she can get her mind wrapped around it, all you got to do is put a little bit of training in front of Miss Bess. And Miss Bess is now going to help you in growing her network that's going to grow yours while you go out and you build these other lines. But we don't talk to Miss Bess because we're afraid that Miss Bess is actually going to shoot us down. But is Miss Bess no any different than the no of the cousin that hasn't worked in 2 years and we were trying to get him up off the couch like, man, he needs this opportunity. If I believe that if he could just get this, just like he's good at that video game, he could be good at this business.
Going to talk to your broke uncle.
Your broke uncle. Thank you.
That's it.
Ain't gonna do it.
He's not going to do it, right? And even if
Drag
he
you down.
does, there are some anomalies out there.
Yeah.
Trust me, there are some anomalies out there that are leading us there, that as we're prospecting, don't spend too much time with suspects, right? You're going through the numbers, spending less time with more people. This is a numbers game. He just talked about it. That was a great analogy where you talked about, you know, going through your 15 presentations a month where you already had it outlined. Like this, in order for me to say I'm working, the only time you're working really in this industry is if you're presenting to people. Everything else is the setup for the work. And too often we put too much emphasis and weight on all the stuff that goes around. But if you're not presenting to somebody, and even better, if you're not presenting to somebody with you, you're not really developing team. Right? What I had to learn was I want to do things actually in groups more than I do individually.
Sure.
So every time I'm doing, showing the plan or whatever that is, I want to have somebody with me. We started building our business, right? We got started on a Tuesday night, and we actually invited 40 people from Tuesday to Thursday, right? Because as soon as my sponsor asked us to get started, we said, okay, we'll go ahead and get started. He said, well, how quickly can we get some people in your living room? Would Thursday work? Again, so we moved from prospecting, spending less time with more people, to actually getting people into leveraged events where you can have groups of people where you can spend a little bit of time. That you got paid, even if it's a small increment. It's a small increment, but it's still belief enough for you. Anybody, we go back to the barbershop analogy real quickly. Anybody got their hair done or gone to the barbershop and there's a frame behind the back bar? What is that? It's got a picture in it, license, and then what?
Their first dollar.
Their first dollar.
Yeah.
Why don't people at work have a frame with a dollar bill in it?
They spent it.
He said they spend it, right? It's direct deposit now, so they don't even see those dollars. It goes right to the debit card. It's a whole nother system.
Can't afford it.
They can't afford it.
They only made a quarter.
What'd you say?
So they only made a quarter.
They only made a quarter, right? A quarter raise. But the reality is people in traditional business world, in a W-2 situation, don't consider a dollar like a new business owner who had to make an investment first.
Yeah.
See, when I had to make an investment to make money, it was different. So when I got that first dollar from that first customer, I was proud of that because it was a different way. As a 1099 contractor, it was a completely different feeling, right? So guess what? When we're recruiting people, 90% of the people that you recruit probably are going to be W-2 people. So they have a W-2 mindset. And even though we're telling them you're a new business owner, they don't know what that means. Agreed? So we're taking them from having a W-2 mindset to a 1099. We're taking them from being a CEO or an employee to a CEO mindset, but we still have to treat them like employees initially because they don't know what being a CEO actually looks like. But that belief check, getting that dollar bill to hang up, it don't even matter how much it is, but they just need a belief check, a small win, right away. So we invited 40 people from Tuesday to Thursday, and 32 of them didn't show up. Oh, this is big. This is huge, right? So because we're the type of people, did you know people lie? Did you know people lie? You did? I knew people lie, but I didn't think they were going to lie to me. Anybody else feel like that? Like if I invite my friends, right, I don't have to use no system, no script, no nothing. If I, James Kelly, if Kanika Kelly says show up somewhere, still to this day, if she told me leave right now and come, people lied to you before you started in network marketing.
Yeah.
Don't think that just because you started this new miracle business where you are looking at this new big dream that you have and you can see it bigger and brighter than you've ever seen it before, that people are going to stop being who they are. Right? Why do we call them liars? Because they lie.
Yeah.
And the liars normally running packs. It's like they running a whole little group over there is the liars. You understand what I mean? But you have to learn to discipline your disappointments. Whenever you're building business, this is big. You've got to learn to discipline your disappointments. And what my sponsor did real quickly, they still believe what they believe, right? That's stupidity. You know, and to realize that this industry has created more millionaires than any other industry, only second to real estate, speaks for itself, right? The gross revenue in network marketing actually is more than the NFL and the NBA together yearly. Yeah. In the industry that you're in. And even though we're not the LeBron James of the NBA, we can be the LeBron James of this NBA. That's the No Bosses Association. Make sense? I'm a huge basketball fan. I never got the chance to be 6'6". If I was, I probably went to the NBA, the regular one. So I had to find another one I could participate in. Okay? And so, in this business, disciplining our disappointments will allow us to stay focused on the things that are important, because right? You got to trust your leadership. And if you don't, it's amazing how creation has a way of balancing itself. Whatever you do to your sponsor and upline, somewhere along the way, it's going to come back to you, right? What you do is going to duplicate, good or bad. So if you trust your leadership, because your leaders, typically if they've been around for a while, number one, they should have your best interests at heart. You'll be able to find out real quickly if they don't, right, Ms. Bess? If somebody lacks integrity, you'll be able to see that. You want to get them as far away from that as possible, as quickly as possible, if that's the case. But if they have integrity and they actually, their views don't correspond with yours, you should really pay attention. Because if everything they say to you, you already know, they likely aren't telling you the truth about what you need to know in order to grow from where you are to where you want to go. So if everything that we say this weekend actually already coincides with what you are thinking currently, we haven't done a good job. Because it's the things that I might say tonight that you disagree with that you probably should take a note on and go and evaluate and look at and say, well, maybe, right? Okay, so trust your leadership. And then number 2, sell out to the system. Whatever system you're a part of, right? Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Because that system, if it's proven to be successful, can allow you to start to create success. And when we first got started, we used to hear it all the time, right? It would tell us, if you get a hot idea, go take a cold shower. Like, serious.
That's awesome.
If you get a hot idea, go take a cold shower. Because you don't want to be the idea of the month kind of organization. You can't build consistency and duplication. Here's the goal of network marketing, right? It's to get a large group of people to do a few simple things consistently over a long period of time. And that's going to yield you the results that is going to give you the time freedom and the financial freedom that you're looking for. And what comes along with time freedom and financial freedom that's even more important than both of those two?
Spending time with your family.
That comes with time freedom. That's a great benefit. Time freedom, financial freedom leads to influence. See, when you become influential, you'll always be able to create success. Some of the top businessmen and women in our world today have closed down more businesses than most people have started. But why were they able to restart them all over again? Not because they were great business people. You know what I'm saying? Because they had to go bankrupt in that business. But their influence now saying, if he walks in the door, he's typically going to make something happen again. My stepfather's a great example of that. He had incredible influence because of his brilliance. So even if he messed up a ton, when he walked in and said he had a new business idea, people were like, man, I know this dude comes with a handful of problems, but we probably going to make a whole lot of money real quick at least. So influence is what we're looking for, right? So you create that influence by getting him on now. Thanks, Rich, for stopping by.
See ya.
I'm trying to help you. This is how we built very early on. And like Mr. Gamble, you know, our organization over 5,000 people, right? And I've only recruited about 200 of those people in 15 years personally. So what you have to know is that I was a person who was a product of my environment because I was willing to trust my leadership and I sold out to the system. When you sell out to the system, guess what you can teach people? The same. And when they see you actually doing the system, they trust you to walk along the same path that you've gone down. So out of those 5, 3 of them say, yep, we'd be willing to go on this journey with you. And out of those 3, we built the team of over 5,000. Okay? Absolutely, thank you. I appreciate it. So, but it wasn't about us. What we did was we found out what their goals and their dreams were, right? So why are you building your business? Right? This is this. If you are connected to me on Facebook or Instagram, my hashtag is Thoughts of a Dream Builder. Thoughts of a Dream Builder, right? Because I wake up early and I stay up late thinking about what I can do to help somebody else build their dream. I can't build it for them, right? But I can think about what I can do to help somebody else build their dream. So thoughts of a dream builder. And so what is your reason for building your business? Right? Francisco, why are you building your business?
Create a legacy for my sons
And so what do you think that'll do for your son? This is your son right here?
Yep. that's my
Each?
youngest.
Pleasure to meet you, man. How old are you? 14 years old.
Awesome.
Nice firm handshake. That was amazing. Eye contact, right? He's looking at me like, yep, I'm gonna be where you are. And not too long. I love it, Ethan. Right,
He
so
looks
what do
like
you
an
think?
executive from here.
Doesn't he? Doesn't he? So what do you think that'll do for your children? Maybe that was different for you in, teaching them legacy early on.
They'll want to give them better options when they're creating their family and they're teaching their children that I look at, not only I try to teach them from my mistakes, but I also teach them what options they have if they choose differently and use better judgment for themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you're teaching them life skills at 14 that will transcend just business, just school, just relationships, right? You're teaching him now in life, how to be a person who knows how to work with people, period. Which, even if you make C's, if you learn how to handle people, right?
Tell them about the seeds.
No, I'm just saying, right?
Tell
So
them
we,
the seeds allowed.
so Ethan, to hear what Dad is saying is, once you know greatness is possible, good is no longer an option.
Yeah.
Right? So if you want to be great, you have to operate at a great level no matter what environment you're in. Make sense? Right? But even some of the people that don't necessarily get it intellectually, when they learn how to shake hands properly, and they know how to smile, right, and put a smile on somebody else's face, they're able to overcome whatever shortcomings they have, not because they didn't work hard in class, but I know there were some classes I just didn't do well in because I wasn't good at it, but I worked extremely hard. And my dad told me when I was younger, he's like, I don't care about the grade. As long as you gave your best effort, I'm okay with that. Right? Your A in math because you're good at it is worse to me than your C in chemistry because you're not really good in chemistry, but I see you staying up late for your chemistry. Make sense? So where we just look at the grades across the board sometimes like, you got a C? Oh my God, but the effort that you put into that C, did you give your best? If you gave your best, I'm going to shake your hand at the end of it and say, you know what? We'll go at it again when it comes time, for the next class. What am I looking for after chemistry? What comes after chemistry? It's been 20 years since I've been in school. What comes after chemistry? Well, you're in middle school. You don't know. No, you're high school this year. You're freshman?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. All right, good. I don't know. What is it?
President of the Young Entrepreneurs Club.
President of the Young Entrepreneurs Club. That's exactly what it is. I don't know what it. I can't think of it. Anyhow, I'm trying to think of the next level of science after chemistry. What's the next in typically take?
Physics.
Physics. There we go. I couldn't think of physics for some reason. All right, good. So, here's why. Somebody else, give me. What's the reason why you're building your business?
Mental clarity.
Somebody said time freedom. It was you, Miss Deb. Okay. And what does time freedom mean to you?
It means I can do anything I want when I want.
Okay. And so if today's Friday, do you still work full time?
No.
Full time business owner.
I work,
Okay.
not full time.
Not work full time, so you work part time. Okay. So you have to be at a certain place at a certain time.
No.
No. Okay. That's what I'm asking. So you're not working a job right now that actually requires you to be anywhere at any time.
Right.
Okay. Are you retired?
No.
No. Okay. I'm just asking, right?
So I'm in real estate. I do rehabs and build teams.
Okay. Good stuff. And you've been doing that for how long?
Started in 1999.
Wow. Good stuff. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yes. And done well for yourself? Okay. Good stuff. So what made you choose real estate?
I love it.
Yes. And then you got involved in network marketing alongside of that for what reason, if you don't mind me asking?
I want to be responsible financially. I don't want to be a burden.
Okay.
And so, to me, it's, I see a lot of people that are dependent. You know, I have a friend that's in her 80s that was eating cabbage for and I help them, but it's still, those examples make me want to be my best.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hopefully.
And teach others.
And teach others.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being transparent, Ms. Deb, because when we hear the whys of other people, a lot of times we'll say the right answers initially. But what I just did with Francisco and Ms. Deb, it started to dig down a little bit into what that why really means for them. So we can say, yep, I want time freedom, or I want to teach my kids legacy. But what does that really mean? What it means to Ms. Deb is that I don't want to be 80 eating cabbage for a week because I enjoyed the flexibility of an industry, but there was no retirement plan to real estate, to barbering. One of the big reasons why I was able to recruit a lot of barbers, because I asked them a question like, hey, how many retired barbers do you know that are living the type of lifestyle that you desire to live? It's a great question to ask. How many retired real estate agents, brokers do you know that are living the type of lifestyle that you want to live? Many people in the free enterprise system, they do well for a season. They start to get older or they get fat and lazy. And I don't mean fat as in body, but I just mean they're slothful, right? And they stop building. But if you don't sell a house, you no longer make money. If you don't own the property and keep it, which a lot of people don't want to do, they want to get rid of it and get it out of their portfolio. But before you look up, you're going to need something to retire into to be able to have a retirement because you didn't discipline yourself with the stuff that you had going. But in network marketing, you have the ability now to be creating a retirement plan all the way along building your business. Right? And one of my mentors said, the reason why I transitioned from real estate to network marketing is because I used to work from 8 to faint, had an incredible, successful real estate business, but if I wasn't selling the house, every day I woke up unemployed. Is what he said, right? So I wanted to be able to have the time freedom and the financial liberty to do the things that I wanted to do with who I wanted to do them with, and no other industry really offers you that like network marketing does. So as we're prospecting, as we're doing stuff in group time, spending less time with more people, we're actually identifying what's going on with those people, because the thing that Ms. Deb said, whenever there's a down day, and there will be down days in business, we have to know that Ms. Deb's motivating factor is that she doesn't want to be 80. And so Ms. Deb said, well, I might not want to show up at the weekly event this week. And I wouldn't just say, well, Ms. Deb, you don't want to be 80 eating cabbage. That would be mean. That would be insensitive, right? But my emotional intelligence says, well, hey, Ms. Deb, I know we talked about your goals as it relates to your business, right? You and I are both on the same page. I'm working really hard towards spending time with my family. I haven't accomplished that yet. Have you reached your goals yet? I'm asking. Normally a person would be like, no, I haven't gotten to that place yet where I'm satisfied. Because most of the time, if they're satisfied, they wouldn't be at a breakthrough event.
Right, and I'm not satisfied with my, yet.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to keep growing.
You want to keep growing. And that's the premise of my conversation. You want to keep growing, don't you?
Right, I do.
Right, so listen, we got this event that is taking place, and we need you to show up. This week, you may not even need the event. But there's somebody there that needs to actually hear from you because you're the example of what they want to get to. And if you're not there, we can't do this together. So as we're talking about building teams, remember, if we're building in groups, but Todd doesn't show up, we're not the same group.
That's right.
When I walk away from here today, I'll remember Todd's Tennessee shirt. I love Tennessee colors, right? That was one of my big things in college. I graduated from U of L, but I love the orange, the bright orange that Tennessee brought. My little brother ended up playing for Tennessee Martin. So been all up and through this state, right? But if Todd wasn't here, today would be a completely different experience. But Todd is sold out to the system. He trusts his leadership, so he shows up. And guess what? As we're building business, the reason why Todd has to be here is when I'm talking to Terry and we want to help her to get in, my testimony may not resonate with Terry's.
Yeah.
But when Todd says, you know what, this is my background, this is how long I've been building business, this is the reason why I'm building business, Terry says, oh, well, I can relate to that. So it's the collective cloud of witnesses that helps us to recruit in big numbers like Mr. Gamble was talking about. I guarantee you when he was going out to recruit all these people, he wasn't just telling his own story. Right? He was telling the stories of the people that came before him. He was telling his own story. He was telling the people that have come after him, right? And then even better than that, if you can tell the stories of the people that you helped to get stories for other people, that's when you know you're really building a big business. So working in groups is going to help you to leverage your time, right? If you ever want to get to the place where you enjoy the time that you want to spend with the people that you love the most, you have to learn how to work in groups. And getting people to work together, Jim Rohn says, is magic, right?
Absolutely.
So,
It's emotional, you know, much different than when one person is by themselves. You know, it's kind of how I met this group, is because I recognize that everybody in the world just about now thinks that you can magically learn something from watching a YouTube video or building an email list.
yeah.
And all these technology things, that there's only a small group of our society that I can utilize, because most of us still can't keep up with it. You know,
That's
it's the kid that was born with a cell phone.
Yeah.
You know, now this technology, the way that we learn, or I should say they learn, I don't learn that way, you know, it's very natural to them. And so now you see, you know, you hear all the time about young people, you know, in their parents' basement, and they're 36 years old and they're still trying to figure it out. You know, and unfortunately, you know, their parents don't really relate to what he's trying to do. And so all they get from them is negativity. And when you're gonna get a real job, like we've all experienced, most of us entrepreneurs, but the one thing and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I mean, you're on an absolute, the value, the power of like this group of people here. You know, a lot of friends, people I think that have met each other, and it's so powerful that it's like, for me, it's hard to believe that, you know, online I don't see anybody really, you know, just going in this direction. You know, there's a lot of problems with just learning all by yourself. You know, the walls kind of creep in on you, the dog is bothering you all the time, the wife's got a to-do list, you know, and you're not in the right environment, because none of those people are trying to learn the language that you're learning, are trying to learn. And so there's a lot of power in, I mean, look at that man. Beautiful, powerful, a lot of energy,
Thank you,
a lot of success. It extrudes from him. You need to be around that. And it doesn't really matter what it is he's talking about, you know, because, you know, ideally you're only there because, you know, you have some interest, and, you know, it's everything. I mean, like I said, I think he mentioned emotional intelligence. Sometimes you can see I struggle with that a little bit, but, you know, the idea of being able to leverage a tool or a product in your friends or your team to create self-independence for yourself is something that evidently a lot of people don't understand. You know, and it's like Jeffrey said, you know, what he explained. I mean, I have to tell you, I was kind of sitting on my hands because I thought he did a beautiful, you know, example. I mean, he was very calm. If I would have been up there telling that story, half of you people would have left because I would have been angry. Because I am angry inside because of what's been done to us. And you know, it's sad when a young man or you know, person goes to school to become a teacher, and then, you know, they're emotionally attached to their students, but they don't really get a chance to really teach them what they, you know, what they believe and what they know. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't really understand what Jeffrey outlined up there, but he did do a fabulous job. I mean, I made all kinds of notes because I can't do that. I mean, I literally, I mean, I scare people, and I don't want to do that, you know, because I know the truth, and let's face it, the truth is hard to find in no matter what you're looking at. And so, what I believe is, you know, is mine, but I should not share it with people because, you know, it's not really healthy for them. You know, they can build, I mean, the way Jeffrey outlined it, explained it, was beautiful, you know, and I can't really do that. I mean, I'm gonna learn how to do it.
Me that when I got the phone call to come out to network marketing, right? I used to have my hair braided. It was real long, and I used to get it braided twice a week because even though I had this image, I was still very particular about how I looked. So that day I had half of it down and half of it still back in cornrows, right? I had my my shorts on, a white t-shirt, and I had my flip-flops on because I put my Jordans up on the counter because I ain't like getting hair in them. You know, this kind of where I was in life, right? So when I get the call, even though I was a business owner, I wasn't a business professional. and this is one of the things that attracted me to network marketing, because I got around other men and women of like minds, and I saw myself in them. I saw eagles, right? And I was hanging around with chickens on a regular basis. We all had wings. Make sense? But there were some people that weren't trying to use them to actually take flight. They were using their wings to keep up dust and keep up confusion. And all they wanted to do was, I never had conversations in my barbershop about making multiple six figures and putting a thumbprint on the entire nation. Because that was the environment that I was in. And so I was a product. I had conditioned myself to be where I was. When I started getting around other people who were professional, and they were reading books, it was another big thing like we talked about. Personal development is everything in this business. Right? It can take a person who has no background, right? So in our business, you can have a PhD or a GED, and you could actually be on the same level of income in this industry. Why? Because the person who actually goes after what they want in life. See, here's what I want you to know. There's some things that have been placed on the top shelf in life. And every one of us has the ability to deserve them. But how do you get to the top shelf? Right? You stand on the books that you read. You actually stand on the audio tapes and the substance that you create as you're building a business, right? Because when you turn your car into Drive Time University, instead of listening to the radio and the propaganda that they're pouring into us on a regular basis, the programming, does that make sense? Right? Why do they call television shows programming? That's exactly what it is. So it's a television. It's telling you the vision of what they want you to see. And the more time you spend in front of the television, that's the vision that is going to be created for you. And I promise you, it's scary out there.
Yeah.
But when you can actually, they say in network marketing, it used to be bad now, but, I actually take whatever is negative and try to turn it into positive, because they say we brainwash people here. And I love when Jim Rohn says that. He says exactly what I'm doing, right? I'm washing the negative out, right? That's what we're doing. We're washing people's negative thinking. They say 70% of all Americans' thinking is negative.
Wow.
70%. This is who you're prospecting. This is who you're showing the plan to. Mr. Gamble couldn't have made it any more specific when he started breaking it down. When we're talking to people, we're not talking to them initially. It's just like when you're going on a date at first. You're not talking to the real person. Y'all do know that, don't you?
Yeah.
People have multiple faces of who they are, right? They put on a face for that first date, but that's not who that person is long term, for the most part. It's the same way with a prospect. When you're talking to that person, you're only talking to their programming initially. And that's why we have to filter through the programming by educating them, if they will allow you to.
What's your quote? 70%?
Of all Americans' thoughts are negative, primarily, right? 70% of their thinking is negative. Pessimism. So if I tell you, hey, listen, we can make six figures, the first thing you're thinking is, nope, I can't do that. Because all the stuff that he said. No, you can stay married all your life. Nope, I can't do that, because 52% of American households end in divorce. Right? You're going to raise your children and they never have to worry about not seeing their dad. Now, because 60% of all households are single family households. That's the negative thinking, right? Because that's what we see on TV. One side of town is worse than the other. You've never even been to that other side of town, but what you watch on TV tells you that it's negative, so you won't even go to the other side of town because of what they told you. And when we go and talk to people, their perceptions of life is what we're talking to initially. And that's why you have to be personally developed to not take it personal. And if you've never had an argument yet in network marketing, just keep working.
Yep.
You'll have one, but if you learn to respond and not react, here's the big thing. You got to learn to respond. When you start dealing, hopefully you'll deal with overcoming objections, right? What I had to learn to do was, instead of arguing with people, because if I convinced a man against his own will, he's still the same man still, right? So I don't argue with people about what they believe. I try to get where they are. So when somebody tells me, you know what, I don't have the time to do that because of X, Y, Z. I don't look at them and say, well, man, me and you hang out 5 nights a week. I said, well, I'm so glad you said that. I can appreciate you saying that. You got to validate the response early on. I'm done in 2 minutes, okay? So you validate the response. For anybody that's looking at how to overcome objections, you always validate what people say. Give them the right to object. That means they're actively engaged. At least they've been paying attention enough to give you a valid, legitimate, what they think is a reason, but most of the time it's an excuse, a psychological smokescreen for why they can't build a business. Okay, I can't afford it, right? because they're thinking that this one-time investment is gonna kill them. But if I told them that same day that their kid's favorite game is about to go on sale for the same amount, and it's normally a little bit more, they'll find that $100, that $200, that $500. They'll go and find it for the right reason to them, but the psychological smoke screen is gonna come up. So what do? We validate the objection because they have a right to make an objection, right? Once we validate it, then you got to get good at not reacting to it, because emotionally, if you get negative about it, guess what? You've lost the battle there. All a sale is, folks, is a transference of belief. So if I believe more in my energy that your objection is just a smoke screen, and I'm going to help you to see that it's a smoke screen, we're going to have a completely different outcome when I respond to that objection than if I react. And be like, did you just hear anything that I just said? I've been talking to you for 20 minutes and you can't possibly have, no, I appreciate you saying what you just said. Let me ask you a question real quickly. If I could show you a way to turn that $100 investment, $200 investment into $400 to $500 over the next 30 days, would you be willing to actually give us an opportunity to show you how to do that? Because my goal, right, is to get you involved in business, not for what you can do for us, but for what we know we can do for you.
Sure, prove it.
Let's go to work. I love to be asked to prove something. Right? Because I know if you're willing to trust your leadership, you're willing to work, right? Because here's what you're looking for. You're looking for people with a strong work ethic. Mr. Gamble, you'll hear some universal principles. You're looking for people with a strong work ethic. You're willing to put in the work. There's three main qualities that you're looking for. A strong work ethic. An actual burning desire to be successful or do something different, right? Through that pain point. And then number three, people that are teachable and want to break the teachable down, right? Because teaching is what we call training, like what we're doing here now. Okay, this is training. And these are the type of people. Are they teachable? Will they sit down and let you pour into them like Ethan is doing right now at 14? It's amazing. Like, I'm loving this. As I walk away from this, one of the big things is the bright spot over here in the corner, right? A 14-year-old is getting trained. Absolutely. Let's give him a round of applause as a matter of fact. So training is, as he's sitting here in the classroom, he's taking notes, right? So we're teaching him how business works. But teaching is how life works. See, the reason why people, Rich, don't stay around long in business is because we're trying to train people instead of teaching them. We'll train them on how the business works, but we never take the time to get their philosophical mind right initially, and they won't stay long in the business if they don't get their philosophies right. So we have to teach them what life is all about, because just because they look like an adult, we got a lot of adults that we're working with that are Ethans.
Yeah,
sure.
In their philosophies.
Yep.
Make sense?
Yep.
And so that's why they say we're high-paid babysitters in the industry, right? As you're getting people to work together in groups, coming back to how we grow businesses. You're talking about building big teams. You got a bunch of kids that you're trying to get to work together with their own psychological inferences that they're dealing with every single day, the egos that come along with it. They don't want other people to shine more than you. Got all of this stuff, and you, as the orchestrator of this symphony, is getting all these different instruments to work together to turn it into the beautiful piece of art that music is when you're actually doing that. And this is you. Right? Because of your influence, you're able to create that. So the last thing is teachable. Training people is how business works. Teaching people is how life works. And then they're coachable. This is the last thing I'll say as I wrap up, and I'll end with a story, is that when people are in the field, because 1 hour in the field is worth 20 in the classroom.
Yep.
Right, this is good. You can get trained all day long. We got a whole bunch of well-trained people in our industry, but they don't work. Right? You ask them to really go out and prospect, present, follow up, overcome objections, close deals. They won't do that, but they'll keep coming to trainings over and over and over again, right? And they get paralyzed, paralysis by analysis, right? They're studying too long, but if you just go spend 1 hour in the field and use some of the stuff that you learned in the classroom, you'd be amazed at how much quicker your axe will sharpen, right? And so But coachability means when you're out in the field that you might have to be willing to let a coach redirect you. Because the coach is sitting up in the skybox while you're out on the field. And I don't know if you ever played sports, but there are certain things that you can't see at the ground level that people in the skybox can see. So when they call in a play, they're trying to see, you might need to run an audible because the defense just shifted and you can't see it. But a lot of times once we get so focused on what we're going to do, if a Mr. Gamble calls and say, hey, listen, I hear you've been doing X, Y, Z. We might need to do X, Y, Z. Like, no, I got this. Coachability means I'm willing to allow a coach to redirect me because he has my best interest at heart. And even if I can't see it, see, what you see depends on where you sit. And many times when we're sitting, we can't see what is necessary to be able to envision, to be able to take us through the defense that's keeping us out of the goal, the end zone. And that's what we really want to get to, right? We want to get to the end zone. So if you're willing to be coachable and be teachable all at the same time, you have the ability to score as many touchdowns as you choose to. Right? And so those are the three things when you're prospecting, when you're going after people, spending less time with more people, keeping your conversation short. Brevity is powerful, right? One of the master recruiters, right? One of my favorite people, you know, took 12 and spread his gospel all across the world, right? Master recruiter said, come follow me. That was his prospecting pitch. He was so much of who he was, he didn't have to say very much. You might not believe in it for its biblical principles, but the philosophical part, right, of one of the greatest stories that's ever written, you can look and say, man, if I could just get my pitch down to that. Come follow me, right? But because he was already on the journey to success, people were willing to follow. So here's what I want you to know. At the end of the day, whenever you come down to whether or not you're going to be successful long-term in business, you have to decide to finish, right? You have to decide to finish. You can't be the type of person that says, well, if it don't work out here, I'm going to go here. And I'm going to go there. And I'm going to figure this out. Like, no. Commit yourself to finishing something. Right? Because there is a finish line. There was a leader of a great army, right? One of my favorite stories out of one of the best books ever written, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And, you know, he was about to go into battle with a foe that was much, much greater than he is. Anybody know this story? Right? And so he gets his army together. They get in their boats. They sail to this faraway land. And when they get off on the enemy's land, he gives a command to actually burn the ships. And everybody's like, burn the ships?
Say what?
Exactly. Right? Todd is like, say
How
what?
we gonna go back?
I don't think so.
But the leader told him, he said, everything we have as a way of life is at stake here. Right? And what we expect is that we have victory today. And he said, either we win, right, or we perish. But there is no going home without finishing the job. And in many of our lives, we haven't burned our ships. The reason why we haven't had success yet is because the people that you're talking to, all they see is exit signs in your eyes when you're talking. But if you don't have exit signs, people know that you're going with or without them, they'll start to line up. They'll start to ask you, man, what makes you believe like you believe that you can actually get to where you're going and what you're talking about? Is because you removed the exit signs, you burned your ships, and you told them it's not just about me leaving a legacy. I don't want to just spend the rest of my life leaving a legacy, right, with my insurance plans and things of that nature. I want to exercise every day, and I want to live my legacy instead of just leaving it. And that's what I feel like we get to